tonight with the phenomenon of man. Not just man in his own kingdom, which we know so well, but the phenomenon of man trying to reach a higher kingdom. Where is this higher kingdom? Above us, below us, in amongst us, all of these certainly. We are concerned with the mechanism of reaching that higher kingdom and understanding why we should want to do that. Before we can make any decisions, we have, of course, to understand something of what man is. Man is not just a solid structure made of gas, liquid, and solid, which interpenetrate each other. He's not even just the structures that I spent 7 years at a medical school learning about. Man is more than these. Man is more than just the tip of the iceberg that we can see. Man's extent goes beneath the level of awareness. And so if we take the iceberg as being the top of a structure that can be easily seen, we're saying that man in his physical body is something more than that. There is a part of the iceberg lying below the level of awareness, our awareness, below the level of the sea, if you like. And there are structures in man also that lie below the level of his awareness. These structures are surprisingly, in a scientific age, well known to us. Very well known to us indeed. Let us consider some of them, and I can only just review them for you here tonight, for we must press on with the subject of the evening. First of all, we must consider the nature of man as encompassing a body of vitality, a body made up of etheric substance, which Sir Oliver Lodge described, the great physicist at the beginning of this century. It is a structure, the so-called etheric body, which is a physiological entity of its own. According to the yogis, this physiological entity has storage sites, miniature suns, in its nature. And these are placed strategically coinciding with the endocrine glands in the physical body. We call these minor suns, we call these structures chakras. And we know from the Hindus, from the yogis of India, that these structures are capable of taking up an energy which saturates the sunlit atmosphere of the earth. We call this energy prana. And when we breathe, we take in this prana attached to the oxygen molecule and we circulate it in this ether body in a variety of ways well described by the yogis, coinciding with structures that look like snakes, the so-called Ida, Sushumna, and Pingala phenomenon. This energy of prana is stored in the etheric body, and it is responsible for our vitality. If you took a pair of twins, the one twin might be highly energetic, active, bouncing around the place. The other twin may be the opposite, may be quite incapable of bubbling about like his brother. The reason would not necessarily be one of health. They may be the same from a health point of view. But the difference is that one is able to take up prana and the other is not. Today we scramble for energy. We cannot do the things we want to do in the world because we have not got the accessibility to prana and other energies which the spiritual person has. Then we must consider also in this framework that part of man's nature known as the astral body, a body made of emotional substance which may exist as emotional matter on the one hand or change into emotional energy on the other. That astral body, as we probably well know, is something that interpenetrates the physical closely. My astral body interpenetrates me now. I am using the emotional energy from my astral body to produce a work of art. You have the same capacity yourselves. If you are emotionally involved, you know that you have a lot of energy available to you. Hence, the energy that comes from an astral body, another part of the invisible nature of man, the invisible part of the iceberg of man, as it were. We must complete this phenomenon of man by saying that he has also a mental body which is half-formed. His evolution on the earth is only partial. Man is, as a spiritual embryo, not a particularly attractive thing, as embryos themselves are not attractive. They are not complete. And we, even with these structures, are not complete. There is finally, of course, that spiritual part of man which many of us describe differently. That spiritual part of man that we call the higher self, or the soul, if you are a person raised in Christianity. And the link with the soul is very tenuous indeed. There is a link. There is a link which enables spiritual energy to be passed down into us. The soul is part of a different kingdom altogether. The higher self or soul has its own evolution. We are part of it, we are connected with it, and we are important to that higher self. The higher self is not capable of advancing in its own kingdom without the sustenance of the personality in incarnation. There is something which the human personality of a soul gives to it, enabling it to progress itself in its own field. Now, the capacity of the soul to pass energy into man, an average person, is about 5% of what it really is capable of. The average person in the world is influenced, is energized by his soul to the extent of about 5%. In the process of meditation, the amount of energy that can be taken into the human personality, symbolized as it is by an inverted triangle, representing the physical body, the astral body in pink, and the mental body in green, symbolizing the personality as an inverted triangle. The personality is only faintly fed by the energies of the soul through a bridge which has been variously described as the Antakarana, or the rainbow bridge, for the qualities, the brilliant qualities of the higher self that can be brought down into the personality. The personality, of course, gives off energies in what we call the human aura. The human aura represents the effluence of energies pouring in to this lower triad from the higher triad, which we could depict there, or the five-pointed star, which indicates that this soul or higher self is part of the great white hierarchy of masters. Now, with this understanding of the totality of man, we are able to proceed with our subject, which is meditation. Why should we need to meditate? We have everything we want here in the physical world. We have mountains and valleys and food and hospitals. We have everything we can conceive of for our benefit. Why then should we need to meditate, to obtain other energies? One thing is certain, that almost every person living in the West has not got enough access to energy. The people who see me in consultation will almost always say, I could do so much more if I only had the energy for it. I get home at night and I am worn out. I can't do the work. Well, the answer to that is that man does not live by bread alone, ladies and gentlemen. He is energized by energies which lie in vast reservoirs on the planes of those bodies that I have described here tonight. And it is possible to tap that energy. That energy is available in great amounts, but because the whole world within is unknown to man, the energy lies untapped. And so I want to emphasize to you again and again here tonight that meditation is an energizing process primarily. It has nothing to do with religion. It is an energizing process in which we are able to replenish the losses of energy which we expend in this world. Sadly, only about 5% of that energy is drawn on. In those who tread the path, who learn to meditate, who give their energies out in serving mankind, who study serious occult classics, and who meditate daily, that percentage may be increased to 70, 80, 90%, depending on the initiation of the individual. And so we ask with better understanding, why do we need to meditate when we have everything around us? We might just as well, and I hope you will eventually understand the relevance of this, we might just as well ask, why do mineral elements give off the radiation of atomic energy? Yes, we know it's because the nucleus of the atom is stimulated, but is there some other reason for certain elements in the mineral kingdom radiating energy? Why do plants give off scents? Yes, possibly to attract bees, so that there can be pollination and so on. Granted all those biological factors, including the necessity of plants to display their sexual organs to the world. Biological reasons, yes, but are there other reasons as well? Then we go to a higher kingdom, the kingdom of animals. Animals living in their wild state sometimes tend to become domesticated, urged towards being taken into another kingdom, taken into the human kingdom, and they're changed for all time, turning their backs on the wild animals of their own kingdom. And we ask then, what is the significance of keeping pets, preferring as they do us to their wild counterparts? The answer to all this is that kingdoms begin to overlap. Kingdoms begin to overlap. The mineral kingdom begins to overlap as it grows in spiritual structure into the plant kingdom. The plant kingdom begins to overlap into the animal kingdom as it grows spiritually, and the animal into the human, and the human into... That's what meditation is all about. The overlapping of kingdoms. And we too overlap into a higher kingdom. It's as simple as that. Let us take a look for a moment at this matter of the growth of kingdoms to a stage in which they overlap. We can take the mineral kingdom. There it is, the mineral kingdom. The mineral kingdom is hardly even set out on its spiritual unfoldment. It is hardly set out on its unfoldment. If this is the goal of unfoldment for each kingdom, you must get this point very clearly. If this is the goal of unfoldment for the first kingdom or the mineral kingdom, this is the goal. The mineral kingdom has only reached so far. Of all the kingdoms, it is the least developed. But we can change that attitude by understanding what has occurred in the last 60 years on Earth. For a vast stimulation has occurred. We'll refer to it in a moment. The plant kingdom, the second kingdom of nature, is the most spiritually developed at its own level. It is nearing completion of its evolution. The flowering of the angiosperms about 60 million years ago, the flowering of the angiosperms combined with the activities of the conifers have produced an almost advanced degree of perfection in this kingdom. And then we have, of course, the animal kingdom on its way to perfection. We only know that the animal kingdom will reach perfection under the stimulation of the human kingdom. That wild animals will be taken into the care to save them from destruction, into the care of those in parts of the world who are able to look after them and to nourish them and to assist them with genetic engineering. And so there's the third kingdom of nature, the animal, more advanced than the mineral, not quite as advanced as the plant kingdom. And then the fourth kingdom of nature, the human kingdom. The human kingdom, well on its way towards perfection. We have a few humans on the earth who have flowered into perfection, and by studying this kingdom which is flowering into perfection, we can understand how mankind is getting that way, beginning to flower into perfection. The Buddha, it was said, when he was near to the final moment of his life, the Buddha gave out through his aura such a radiation that cellars approaching him could feel his presence 9 miles from him. The emanations, the giving out of the Buddha, copying, as it were, the fragrance given out by the flowering kingdoms. And then another kingdom, the fifth. We know very little about it. We only know that every now and again, some saint, some chela, some great one emerges in humanity, assists humanity, is probably crucified by humanity, destroyed by humanity, but leaves behind him the works that he has done, and in some way, usually through sacrifice or service to man, enters the fifth kingdom. That's what it's all about. We don't expect every person, every son of God, if you must have it that way, to leave our kingdom in sorrow, to be torn to pieces, to suffer assassination, as many a saint. There are gentler ways. And at this time, the gentler way is just that. It is that of meditation. The safe way, the middle way, the gentle way, the way that the masters of the fifth kingdom want us to act in, to meditate. I can only take one example of how this magnificent process works. Atomic radiation. We split a bomb, the atomic nucleus of a bomb in fission, and we get strontium fallout, radioactive strontium. And it falls onto the grass. The plant kingdom takes it up, this radioactive material. And then the animal kingdom, the cows eat the grass, and the radioactive material is in the cows, in their bones, in the cow's milk. And we drink the milk, the radioactive milk, very faint quantities of it, certainly. And even mankind is affected by this particular mineral activity. And so kingdoms overlap. Animals enter our society from the wild. They work for us. They feed us. They are changed by our breeding methods. They enter our zoos. They stimulate our desire for their welfare, and so on. Overlapping, we call it, overlapping. You yourselves, many of you here tonight, know how the animal has very little astral material at all. And he is born with a certain amount of astral substance. But when he becomes domesticated, when he begins to break through to the fourth kingdom of nature, man himself domesticates the wild animal by loving him, by petting him, by feeding him with the emotional energies that mankind is capable of. And so the animal is flooded with emotional substance from the higher kingdom. And out of this, the animal is able, with due course, to produce an astral form. Only a temporary form, but an astral form. And when the animal dies and casts off its physical body, it does not just return, as it were, as the theosophists would say, to a group soul of animals in a species, but it may live in the precincts of its human master or mistress for some time in its astral body until it sinks into the body of another animal of its own kind. And so we come then to ask, what of us? What of us? What of humanity? We have a higher kingdom. We have a higher kingdom that we aspire to. We needn't be here tonight. It's not going to add a single penny onto your wages this week. It may not even add a single year onto your life or bring your family any reward, but we are still here. The higher kingdom of nature, the one that we try to reach in meditation, is inhabited by human forms that have gone before us on the earth. Humans perfecting themselves through the simple mechanism of reincarnation, of being born onto the earth again and again, perhaps for many hundreds of lives, before they are able to put together a personality which is capable of receiving spiritual energies and transmitting these energies out into the world as teaching, as healing, as serving mankind. For this is what our task is, that we approach the fifth kingdom of nature. We approach it by serving mankind. And the way that we can do this best of all is to increase the flow of energy down from the higher self, through the Antakarana or the rainbow bridgehead. Now, in days gone by, the saints, the rishis, the masters of the fifth kingdom, they used to take pupils for training. And so we have just emerged from the Piscean age, an age in which monastic life was frequent, was common. The churches provided a monastic existence. masters were able to instruct pupils personally, give them their personal attention. It's no longer becoming possible in the new age. The age of Aquarius is on us. The age of Pisces is dying. And the new age means that the population is going to explode, is exploding, and that working in groups will be the method of instruction in this age. Now, consider the situation then. We have a population that has grown 3 times in my life. When I was a little boy, the population of the earth was 2 billion. The population of the earth today is 6 billion, and I have some years yet to go. Now that means that amongst that 6 billion, not 500 million, as of in the Piscean days, amongst that 6 billion, which may soon become 10 billion, there are those who are yearning for the higher kingdom, who have had many lives on earth. They may not be branded with a brand to show how many lives they've had, nor may they be detected as being essentially spiritual enough for the process. We only know that men begin to turn away from their situation in the material world and develop a spiritual thirst. The overtaxed masters of the fifth kingdom are desperate to help, but they themselves are desperately in need of help. They need you. They need others to assist the spiritualization of the earth. Jung called the alcoholism of mankind a spiritual thirst, a thirst for spirit. And when people can't get to spirit, they turn, in many instances, according to their genetic makeup, they turn to alcohol. And thus alcoholism has a deep cause, a very deep cause indeed. Let's consider some of the things that happen when you meditate. You cross into a higher kingdom with safety and with serenity, not fighting your way into it, though there are those, according to their rays, that have to force their way into the fifth kingdom of nature. When they do create a bridgehead with the higher kingdom, they themselves become channels for spiritual energy. They themselves shower outwards from their auras energies that calm spiritually the population of the earth. They act as stabilizing points on the earth, channels for enlightenment, the great teachers and healers of the world, because meditation is a language of communication with the gods. The language of communication with the gods, meditation. And those that we try and communicate with, we give the loose term the white brotherhood, the white brotherhood. And so there is this overlapping from one kingdom to another. Now we have to consider some of the problems, the entanglements in the process of struggling to reach a higher kingdom. And the surprising thing is that one of these things that we would think would assist us is the greatest problem of all, the problem of the human mind, the problem of the human mind. Madame Blavatsky said that the mind is the slayer of the real. It shuts out the real. Let us see then what we mean by this. We need to look at the phenomenon of man's mind. We all like to think of ourselves as being able to sit someday in any sort of posture, so long as we can meditate. And what we're trying to do in meditation is to reach a higher kingdom where in that higher kingdom there is that spiritual agent of ours, that spiritual device on a higher evolution than our own personalities. And so you would ask, well, why can't we just reach it? Visualize a five-pointed star and reach it. For the five-pointed star is the symbol of hierarchy. The problem lies in what Madame Blavatsky described. You see, we all of us think thought after thought after thought after thought. That we know to our cost, because there's very little we can do about it. And those thoughts shut out the real. Let me put it in here for example. Thought after thought after thought after thought. There it is. And that's the mind generates them. And the senses goad it on. The mind won't operate without its five senses. The five senses energize the mind to produce its thoughts. It is the Raja of the senses. And so the higher self, with its spiritual energies, with its love wisdom, with its atmic will, with its great philosophical background of truth, beauty, and goodness, cannot penetrate the mind, cannot reach you. And that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. And so here tonight, in meditation, we have to consider ways and means in which the flow of thoughts can be slowed down and minimized before they are allowed to resurge once more. And if we can do this, if we can slow the mind down and eventually stop it in its tracks before it starts its nonsense again, then the higher self may pour through, flooding us with wisdom, with compassion, with buddhi, with intuition, and all the spiritual qualities of the higher self. Or we in turn, finding our feet in meditation, choosing fine objects to meditate on, being able to visualize the face of the Master, we too may be able to enter the higher kingdom. The antakarana becomes widened and widened, and the energy pours down into us. And so we're concerned with this problem of man's mind. Unfortunately, there's one more. Not particularly well emphasized in ancient literature. It's part of the phenomena of Maya, described by the Hindus, illusion, delusion, and everything else that goes with it. You see, in the process of transmitting energies from us, we radiate out from us with negative thinking and beliefs and attitudes and so on. We radiate out from us through the globule of our auric egg. We radiate out from us a glamour. Alice Bailey attacked this problem very bravely, I thought. We generate glamour. Our generation of glamour is not much. We see ourselves occasionally as very devoted disciples. We see ourselves meditating on the opening of a rose and think we're doing very well. That's a bit of glamour there. But the real glamour is from the materialists. And out in the world, the glamour of materialism is immense. And it is a thick, choking fog where people regard material things as more important than anything else. And they regard people who think that material things are nothing They regard them as fools for believing that there is anything worth having than an extra car or an extra house or a higher salary or more of this and more of that and bigger this and bigger that. And that's why the world's in such a problem, in such a state. There is this immense fog of filthy material. And we generate a little bit of it. When we become more spiritually involved, when the antakarana draws down from the higher self more energy, we are like those who can pour distilled water into a muddy, filth-soaked, materialist atmosphere that this world is. The English master Robert Browning, who moved on to take a higher initiation some 30 years ago, the English master Robert Browning tried to describe some of these elements that I have given you here tonight. He tried to tell the world in his great poem, drama, Paracelsus, that there is within us this great spark of divinity on its own evolutionary steps, trying to express itself through us. And he said, truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise from outward things, whatever you may believe. There is an inmost center in all of us, where truth abides in fullness, and around, wall upon wall, the gross flesh hems it in, this perfect, clear perception which is truth. But a baffling and perverting carnal mesh binds it, and makes all error, and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting an entry for a light supposed to be without. There, he wrote it more than 100 years ago, practically ignored. I've spent £1.25 million of my dear friends' money to produce a film about Paracelsus, the man that English poet Robert Browning admired more than any. How do we first begin to feel the pull of the soul, the pull of the higher self, latching on to us and saying, here I am, here, not out there, not out there, here, within you, right within you, within you. What is the major sign that signals to us that the inner self wants you to withdraw from the world? It is an impelling feeling. You would say it is an emotional feeling, but it is far deeper. It is the soul calling you. A feeling comes over you that you must withdraw from the world. Not all day, every day. Not that we must live in this world less, but that we should learn to live in both worlds more. And so there is this impelling call to withdraw from the world. It's like being in the desert for a year and yearning to get to the sea. There was another great poet, John Masefield, who wrote a wonderful poem, which you probably all read at school, called Sea Fever, which expresses this pull of the soul, calling on its personality to come to it, remembering that the sea is the great symbol of the collective unconscious, and that the mermaid on the rock in the sea is the animus or the anima calling to us to enter the great sea of the unknown, the spiritual worlds. John Masefield, who wrote Sea Fever. I must down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by, and the wheels kick and the wind's song and the white sails shaking, and a grey mist on the sea's face and a grey dawn breaking. I must down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied. And all I ask is a windy day with the white clouds flying and the flung spray and the blown spume and the seagulls crying. I must down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep and a sweet dream when the long trek's over. A man feeling the call of his soul. And it's that kind of feeling that comes to you. You may be boozed up in a pub. You may be laughing and joking with the other guys in the team. Whatever circumstances you're in, the call of the soul will reach you. Now, another problem with meditation, I know it sounds awfully difficult, but cling on. Another problem with meditation is that it requires time. The higher self is immortal. Try and understand that. It is immortal. Time to it is totally different from time as we understand it. And just as you cannot think or accept that the soul must learn whatever language its personality has in an incarnation, Chinese this life, Greek the next life, and so on, so too you must understand that time is different for the higher self. And you will need time to attract its attention, to show that you really mean what you're doing, that this is serious, this is not just curiosity because the girl next door's begun to meditate, that you're really serious about it. And you'll have to fight to get that time. That is the great difficulty with us in the West, and that the yogas we try out and the meditational techniques have to take into account that we have to fight for time in our daily life, don't we? Yes. And here is a guy coming along and saying to us, I want yet another half an hour of your time a day. Preferably an hour, half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening when the sun's going down and coming up. Well, I deal with this under the heading of seating yourself. But you must get that time. Don't tread this path if you're not going to make changes to your life in order to obtain time, not because I tell you to, but because you need it if you're going to reach the higher self. And so it is very important for you to carry out the Delphic injunction, man, know thyself. If you know yourself, you can change yourself. You can find time for that self. If you don't know yourself, you can't change yourself. You won't know where to begin. And so part of the impelling call that comes to you from the higher self, from that linkage with the higher self, is asking you to adjust your life and circumstances, readjust them. I will do the rest, it says. I will do the rest. Just adjust your life and your circumstances, your attitudes. What are they? First of all, cut down on your wants. We are too greedy. We're greedy as a nation. We're greedy as a root race. We're greedy. We want too much. Try and cut your needs down to that of a monk who has very few needs indeed, only what you really do need. Give yourself some elbow room by doing that. Take irrelevances out of your life. The things that are irrelevant, that'll give you time, more time. Such silly things as remembering birthdays, having a birthday book for everyone in the family, and then an extension for everyone you know. How awful. Watching silly programs on television. Reading fiction. Oh yes, it's so nice to pick up Ulysses, 700 pages. And of course I've read Ulysses, you see, and it's nice to brag about that. Well, you want to think about Ulysses and what Carl Jung thought of it. And so you cut down on all these things that you've relied on. Oh, I must be entertained. You don't have to be entertained at all. If you've heard the call of the soul, there's a lot of entertainment you can do without. Kill out ambition, as Madame Blavatsky said. Kill out ambition, but live like one ambitious. What did she mean? She meant this: kill out the ambition for worldly things. But when you kill out the ambition for worldly things, don't lose the verve, the hubris, the enthusiasmus that goes with it. Take that and direct it inwards to build your part of the Channel Tunnel. I mean, of course, the Antakarana. Because the Antakarana is approached from both directions, from without going inwards and from within going outwards. And efforts are made on both sides. Kill out ambition. Don't look for results. I won't go any further with it unless I get a result by tomorrow. Forget it. Don't even start. Those of you who judge by results are materialists at heart. The results may not come in this life, but they will come eventually, perhaps in lives to come. Now, you won't be much of a popular guru if you teach that sort of thing. Unfortunately, it's true. You have to accept that you're dealing with immortality, a guy, a being, a higher self that is immortal and has the wisdom of that immortality, but cannot release it to you unless you make the effort to reach him. Right, the stages of meditation. May we have somebody put this up, please? I have a form here. Thank you. Shall I hold it here, Marcus, for the time being? You can see what these are. Have you got anything to put it up with? Or are you going to hold it? Very foolish of you not to have brought something up. The stages of personal meditation. Why do I say personal meditation? Because there is a full moon meditation. When a lot of people on the earth decide that they're going to choose the moment of the full moon because it is the same moment all over the world, and they meditate together at the time of the full moon, meditating in groups for the Aquarian age. I'm talking about the stages of personal meditation. They'll go up in a moment. And the first stage of personal meditation is to seat yourself. All the great bodhisattvas always learnt to seat themselves. What do we mean by that? Learning to seat yourself. The great sages and rishis all seated themselves before meditation. The Buddha seated himself under the Bodhi tree. Christ walked in the wilderness or sought the quietness of Gethsemane. If the proper steps are taken, seating oneself saves time and quickly encourages alignment with matters spiritual. You see, you don't, if you've only got half an hour to meditate each day, you can't go and spend 20 minutes clearing the house or the room for it and getting the noises outside out of the way and things like that. You must learn to seat yourself and do certain things which will allow you to seat yourself in 5 minutes, in 4 minutes, in 2 minutes. And then you have saved that time each day. So, seating oneself. What do you need to do? You must have a room of your own, a room of one's own. That is the symbolic way of putting it, a room of one's own. Of course, some of you can't find an actual room, square, 4 walls and so on, of your own. Find a place. The end of a passage is just as good, so long as it's yours, where you can put a curtain across the passage, where you may have things in that part of the house that are yours, where you can sit comfortably, where you can go to when you are ready to meditate. Not a place that you go into when you're in a filthy mood and go and cool off. A place whose vibrations can be raised and raised and raised. And each time you go in there, receptive as you are, your vibrations can reach that level. A room of one's own. Be sensible about it. I knew a very rich man, a friend of mine and his family, and he was crazy about the esoteric. And he had in his flat, high overlooking Regent's Park, he had a room all to himself in the flat. And there was everything in it that he wanted. But he just couldn't meditate there. He felt that just the fact that the fruit arrived from the greengrocer in the middle of his meditation and his wife fussed about and so on, that this was not good enough. And so he got the flat next door and knocked the doors down, and that was a place where he could meditate. And I met him after all this commotion was over, and I said, Hilton, how's your meditation getting on? Well, he said, it's not doing too well. Douglas, I've decided I can't meditate in England. The place is too rushed. Noise all the time. I just can't do it. I'm going to go to Switzerland. I'm getting a chalet there up in the mountains, and that's when I'm going to meditate, there in Switzerland. Well, off he went, and years later I met him there again, and he still couldn't meditate. He still couldn't meditate. He was concentrating on the physical things of life. Those are the easiest things of life. It's that devil, the human mind, that is the difficult one. All these little things as part of a room of one's own, and of course of seating oneself, these are important. Get them right, but they should only be minor. You have no distractions, nobody to interrupt you, if you can help it. Just a bookcase, a chair, a table, if you want it, a low bed. If you like to meditate lying down, nothing wrong with that at all. I don't care what the yogis say. No reason why you shouldn't meditate lying down so long as you obey what is required of you in meditation, and you will know what that is. Stained glass windows help a little bit, especially if they can catch the sun and the colors come through, remembering always that the devas hear color. the involutionary part of life. They're moving down into matter, we're moving out of matter. We encircle and crisscross. They see what we hear. They hear what we see. They are able, with stained glass, to hear glorious music through that coloring. Freshly cut flowers help tremendously. The master likes, if possible, to have a potted plant in the room. Negative ions are produced by potted plants. You can't afford potted plants, and they should be changed from time to time. You can get a machine ionizer. Some of them are very good indeed. They produce negative ions, and negative ions are very helpful in seating yourself in meditation. Get crystals from the market. Some of the markets have still got the lovely old crystals from chandeliers. Hang them up, possibly where the wind can enter through an open window. Hang them in the opening and allow the tinkling of the crystals to go through the room. Very, very spiritualizing. The Devas love it, and especially when the crystals flash colors, the 7 colors of the rays or the spectrum. A picture of the master, yes, by all means. But be sure that you're up to date, at least within 20 years. The masters of 80 years ago have greatly changed, greatly changed. The Christ himself manifests according to the rays which are in manifestation at the time. He manifested in the first ray through H.P. Blavatsky and Annie Besant. He manifested through the second ray of love wisdom in C.W. Leadbeater and Alice Bailey. He's manifesting again air through the nostrils. One of the most powerful exercises possible in meditation. And when you reach the climax of meditation, and if you're interested in superconscious experience, it is the bellows breath that takes you into superconsciousness at the height of meditation. Then the most important of all, the spiritual diary. The spiritual diary. I began to keep a spiritual diary when I first went into retreat. And the diary that I have here tells of the kind of evolution of a diary I had. It can be a plain manuscript book, but it must be the focal point of the room of one's own. The focal point of the room of one's own. It is your altar. It can be just a book like this, a file, plain paper in it, not dated, no dates on it, except those which you write in when you need to put a date in. There's sounds. This is the time that you can review the objects in your room, the room of one's own. You can review them very quickly while your eyes are shut. If you use a Gregorian chant, you'll try and make out the words of the chant, but you won't hear them. The Gregorian chant smooths out all the words and the rhythm. It's very, very helpful indeed. So that's something more or less catered for, that the ears can't pick out anything in the background music. The mind will soon get bored smelling the same old incense. Session after session after session. God, can't you rake up anything else? And that is exactly what you're trying to obtain, to get this mind submissive. People who are bored will do almost anything, won't they? And when the mind is bored and the senses are not stimulating it, It can only turn to you, the owner, the possessor, the sovereign. It's got nothing to touch, but it will go on searching, that mind. People in float tanks try and overcome this. Yeah, they'll even come out of the body. But that doesn't mean that you'll be helped to meditate, because there are some things that have to be cleared up, and I'm going to tell you what they are. The most important thing I have to say here tonight is that you cannot meditate on an object outside the body. You cannot meditate on an object outside the body. Oh, I know, it's very nice to have a lovely red rose, and everybody's watching, and, well, I'm meditating on the rose, you see, and I can see the bud is opening slowly there. Oh, and I feel so... That is bunkum. They may be looking at it and taking it in and stimulating their senses like hell, but they are not meditating, and you can quote me. You can only meditate on something inside the body, and that then gives you the clue. And so you choose something inside the body that will take the attention of the mind completely, so that it has no inclination to listen for a hooter of your friend coming in the front garden with his car or something like that. You've got to occupy that mind so completely and totally. And so what do? Well, I'm an anatomist, which means that I know most parts of the body as well as their esoteric counterparts. By that I mean their parts in the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, and an Atma, Buddhi, and Manas. We have a part of the body that is circular, it is muscular, and it lies very near to an important chakra called the chakra at the base of the spine. That chakra, which is the center of Muladhara, which is the serpent, the female serpent that can be aroused from the base of the spine. Aurora borealis is going on, flooding in of light here and there. Don't worry too much about it. Even pressure on the eyeballs, squeezing the eyeballs tight, stimulates the vagus nerve. Just like when you hold your breath, you stimulate the vagus nerve. And when you do that, your head becomes filled with light. You must know these things. The vagus nerve is the psychic aerial of the body. It's the psychic aerial of the body. The vagal fibers lie very, very close to the fibers in the root of the brain that carry ecstasy into the body. Those are sidelines on esoteric anatomy. All I'm asking you to do is successively to bring the attention of the mind to contracting the anus, then to contracting the navel region. In men, as you will soon find out if you don't already know, it will lift the penis, not an erect penis. It will lift the penis away from the testicles, which is a good sign that you are succeeding well in the solar plexus or navel lock. If you were to carry the anatomy further, you would discover that the penis is a dual organ, that the stream of urine may be directed into the right or the left part of the penis and produce different streams. I'm merely giving you this information to indicate to you that your capacity to contract in the navel region is there, if these signposts become clear to you. And so you are now concerned with turning your attention inwards and upwards with your eyes shut. Sometimes, eventually, the action may draw the eyelids slightly open, and then only the white of the eyes may be seen. Nothing to worry about, provided you have kept on with your eye exercises. Now, they're very important. The eye movements take up 4 or 5 or 6 nerves in the brain. The eyes occupy half the cranial nerves in the brain. They take up their attention. So they're very important indeed. So your gaze is inwards and upwards to this region, and you try and hold that for a period of 12 seconds, totally and utterly, which takes you into the concentration stage of the meditation. And so by hook or by crook, we have got you inside your body. We have got your attention away from the anal lock right up into the brow, to the center, to the sacred square inch between the brow. Now, what are we going to concentrate on now that we have got our attention there? We're holding on with our eyelids turned inwards and upwards. We can't be bothered with anything out there or anywhere. We're just there with our attention placed in the sacred square inch. Now, what is it we're going to concentrate on? You've got to put it there. You've got to put it there. And it's an object for meditation, an object for meditation. That's what you put there, inside your body. And that brings us to the matter of visualization, the capacity to visualize, to put something there, to put something there. Oh, we're good at imagination. Yes, we can sit down and we can imagine ourselves playing all sorts of roles. We can look at a book, never mind the kind of book. You could look at the book and you can imagine all sorts of things, fantasizing and so on and so on and so on. That has absolutely no value whatever in spiritual unfoldment. It is imagination. Note what imagination is like. It's a negative kind of thing. It can be very, very easily affected by the sensory organs. Let me show you what I mean. You're walking along a dark road at night by yourself. You're walking along a dark road at night by yourself. Maybe you're a little bit scared, windy, and you sing a little bit. And then you are aware that something is crackling in the undergrowth, in the darkness of the undergrowth. And you stop and you listen, and you hear the crack go again. Oh my God, I'm being followed. That's the imagination. Imagination runs right. I wonder who it can be. I'm going to be mugged. I better run. That's an imagination. Run right. Fed by the senses. Fed by the senses. Trying to compare imagination, which has its part to play in mankind, but not in meditation. Fantasy and imagination are not part of spiritual unfoldment. They might be creative, help you to design a cathedral, and yes, no arguments about that. But in meditation, the matter of imagination must be ruled out. Imagination in that circumstance was not under control of the will, was it? You heard a click in the undergrowth and you wanted to run. The will had no say at all. Maybe the will could be invoked, and I'm not going to be a damn fool and run. I'm just going to carry on walking. But that was imagination, not under control of the will, and the senses helped it. I hope you're watching the board here. Now, on the contrary, visualization, when you're going to put something here, you're going to put something there, even if you're in that position and it's the color pink, you're going to put it there, pink. You're going to put it there, pink, or green, or yellow. May take a few seconds, may take a few years for you to learn it. But this is different. You are putting it there, not an incident in the side of the road, not something out of you. You are putting it there, and that's visualization. And visualization can produce objects for meditation. And so visualization, compared to imagination, visualization is a positive thing. You do it. You do it, and it's an active thing. You make a visual object, whereas the imagination, anything could come up there. That crack of the stick in the sidelines, it could have conjured anything up, a crocodile, anything. Next, your visualization. I'm going to put the color pink there. I decide here and now, in my sanity, without my senses interfering with me, I'm going to put the color pink there. So, positive, under your control, and cut off from the senses. The senses are not required to help it. Whereas in imagination, the senses feed it. The senses feed it. A little bit of perfume, yes, that's my lady. Do you know what I mean? Right. I think I've drawn it up for you there. That's very important to understand. And so you come to the matter of visualization. And we're now under the section. Where is the section? Over here. We have withdrawal of the senses, and under the section on concentration, we're going to put an object there. We're going to put an object there. And so you start off gently, very easily, no difficulty involved at all. And you choose a simple color that you know very well, and you put it there. In the space between the brows, you put the color pink. Maybe just a diffusing of the color pink, not hard. If you insist on it, you use the will and the determination and everything positive about you, and watch for it to come, it will come. All right? Maybe you try other colors. Other colors, violet, more complicated perhaps. Violet, yellow, any color you like. The next thing that you do is to try and fashion the visualized color into an object, a nice easy one. There you are, a square. That's not difficult. Some of you will find a square quite easily. Others of you might find a circle more easily, whatever it is. When I was a young man struggling to meditate, I used to sit in my retreat and watch the red sun come up above the horizon, above the Indian Ocean, every morning in a dry region. And there was this great red ball would come up out of the sea. And I would look at it, and I would see it there. And then eventually I didn't need the sun. Eventually I could put the red ball there. And that's what we're talking about, an object for meditation. And So you have gone from a diffused color, green, into a square or a circle, or then you may go into three-dimensional objects, like a pyramid, a green pyramid. You are visualizing objects for meditation. And so this process enables you to obtain some sort of mastery. The mind has taught not to interfere, not to interfere. And then you begin to grow up in meditation. You begin to choose objects worthy of the master's attention. I don't know of any way of spiritual unfoldment except through the assistance of the masters. I don't. And I don't believe anybody else has any method that reaches as high as what the masters can take you. And so you begin to put things there, objects for meditation, which are meaningful to the masters, or they may be pregnant with meaning. Pregnant with meaning. Pregnant with meaning. See an egg. Is an egg pregnant with meaning? It's different from a lump of stone, isn't it? It has implications in it. Let us take something more obvious. A Taj Mahal. Try and construct it. Not all at once, of course you can't. The outer facade of the big dome. Oh, there it is. I've done circles already. Now, this is a lovely silver-colored dome. And oh, look, I can do it. 4 minarets there. 4 minarets. Not imagination. You're putting them there. They're under positive direction. The dome with a point at the top. You can study the Taj Mahal, of course you can. Have a book on it. But meditation only begins within you, and you must put it there in what we call visualization. And so you get the 4 minarets on the outside with a huge dome. And as you do this quite often in your meditations, stick to it, you begin to feel the sorrow behind that great structure, the sorrow of the man that built it, showing the devotion that he had for his wife and subsequent to her death, and the architect that he had chosen to design it, and the way in which it reflected the moon, as the moon reflects the sun, and the moon is her light, and the sun is his light. That's the difference. You're choosing meditation or objects which are pregnant with meaning. Let me take you further. It may not feed you back straight away in the way that I've suggested to you. A few drops don't make a monsoon. No, but they may presage one, and a few little successes will help. Somerset Maugham, the writer, was a great lover of art, and he was in one of the galleries in Florence, Uffizi, I think it was, in Florence. And he had trudged through the gallery for hours, and he was tired. His physical body was tired, and his mind was tired. Lucky man. He was tired, and he flung himself down onto a seat opposite a huge picture. And it was a picture of the feast at the house of Levi. And it showed our Lord with his disciples seated on each side of him, this long table, the feast at the house of Levi. And Somerset Maugham, tired, looked at this gorgeous picture. And then he thought, as he looked into the eyes of Jesus, whose head was in profile, and he wanted to look into the eyes of Jesus, the head turned towards him, and he looked right into the eyes of the Christ. He was so startled, he said, that he got to his feet, removed his spectacles, and walked up to the picture. And the head turned back into the picture. He said, if I was asked to swear on the Bible in a court of law, I would, that the head of Jesus had turned towards me and looked at me. What does that suggest? It suggests that perhaps you might want to put the face of Jesus there as an object for meditation. I don't know who you are. Or the Madonna. Or another object of meditation of high spiritual standing. Whoever your master may be. And so you may do that. You may study, as many do, sit, kneel in devotion towards a picture of a master or some object of reverence. It could be the heart chakra, a picture of the heart chakra. It could be the oxygen molecule. It could be a picture of Mercury, the psychopomp that takes you into the unconscious, to the world of the unconscious. It could be just the matter of mercy, the subject of mercy. Put it there. Put it there. And then concentrate on it. Concentrate on it. Concentrate on what? The face of Jesus or the face of the Master? What would you concentrate on? The eyes. The eyes. Of course you would. Look into those eyes and feel the compassion. O thou that takest away the sins of the world, have mercy upon us. All the mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, whatever it is you. Use them. Bring them into being. Beseech, if you will. And let the face that you put there come to life. Maybe a smile, maybe a loving glance, as only the masters can give. The loving glance that they give, in which they tell you, I understand you completely. I understand what you've been through. I understand what you're suffering. I understand your hopes and wishes, your aspirations, and so on. And the master does it with a glance. And so, the subject of meditation. Feedback comes, of course. You can put anything there. You can put an object of meditation that may lead you right into Atlantis. And you can get feedback from it. But what is superconsciousness? I must leave that one to the second talk on this subject. The superconscious experience arising from meditation requires three things. And they're not easy, ladies and gentlemen. I wish they were. They require you to visualize something. All right? Let's say that it is the figure of a master. And you have succeeded in visualizing the figure of the master. Then the second thing is, one, visualization of an object of meditation. You've done that. Then concentration on the most pregnant part of the object of meditation in the hope that it will give birth. You focus on the most pregnant part. You focus on an object of meditation that is pregnant with meaning. And in the hope that it will give birth to you and give you that meaning, give you that compassion, give you that energy, as you swear that you will give your energy till your dying day for mankind, and God help you if you don't. And so, visualization, concentration on the most pregnant. What is the most pregnant part, the most important part of the disc of a record? Well, would you concentrate on that part? No, you would go to the center, and the record is a symbol of concentration. Look at it. The record is a symbol of concentration. Why? Because it takes you from the periphery to the, not quite to the center, no, but it could. The sun, that's the symbol of the sun. And the sun's symbol asks that you find the central point of it. Now, when you can do these three things, that you can visualize an object that you have chosen pre-selected, and you can concentrate on the most pregnant part of it. I have to use those words, I have nothing else. And then a third thing, the bellows breath. And when you have visualized and you are concentrating on the point of that object, and you reach it and you hold it, dharana, the bellows breath, and it'll take you into the fifth kingdom, and you will experience superconsciousness. You will experience three glorious things at once: omniscience, omnipotence, the all-knowing of omnipotence, the all-power of omnipotence. I'm mixed up because I'm thinking of the letter Om. Omnipotence, omniscience, and what's the other one? Something to do with the extension of time. I've got it in my notes. And those three things emerge in the superconscious state. You will walk in other dimensions. You will experience ecstasy much greater, higher than anything that you